month's webinar series. And today we've got another interesting session and someone I know who's got a lot of experience that I'm glad and fortunate to be able to bring him onto this series as a guest presenter. And I want you to ask your questions, make sure you pay attention to glean from his wealth of knowledge. He's worked in every major aspect of the data, enterprise data warehouse and data lake aspect of a company and large organizations for decades. So his name is Venu Amancha, and I'm going to try to get out of the way. So I'm already doing the intro, which I'm already like short of time because I started that late. Today's topic is build enterprise data lake and data warehouse using Lucid Data Hub AI. And it's going to run, once I hand over to him, it's going to run until the end. I will just take the last 2 minutes of today, this 1 hour to wrap up, like just thank you and close the session. So he's going to do all of the talk. And luckily, he's agreed that you can ask your questions in between. So if as you ask questions, please use the Q&A and I'll pass the questions to him. I'll read it so that way it's a bit more lively. Next month, we have another uh, Gen AI session. I know a lot of people are interested in trying more, and sometimes you just hear about this and it looks afar, but we know we are bringing it close to you. And as usual, it's going to be a live demo how you can use most of the local LLM setup tools, Olama plus Chatbox versus LM Studio versus GPT for all. But again, these are just tools that I picked to fit into the 1 hour. The knowledge is applicable to other tools that are also available, like Jan and a few other popular tools. Okay, so today, as I've mentioned, we've got Venu is the founder of Lucid Data Hub, and he's someone who's been in the enterprise data engineering space for decades. And is it okay if I tell them that I can share your LinkedIn in the chat and they can always connect with you? Okay,
Yeah,
thanks. So,
exactly.
okay, so I will share his LinkedIn in the chat and you can connect with him. But that's it. I'm going to hand over to him now so that he has all the time he needs with us. I'll stop sharing my screen and then he's going to take over the sharing and I'll turn off my camera. Thank you. Over to you, Lenny.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And I think I can see quite a lot. There are 13 attendees right now. I think people are still joining, I guess. So, hi,
Yes.
everyone. This is Venu Amancha, and thanks, Michael, for nice introduction. And so, quickly, like I'm the founder of Lucid Data Hub. We've been actually working on this product from last couple of years. So my background is mostly on enterprise data engineering and building data lakes and data warehouse from uh, from last 2 decades and mostly on the across the industries like in healthcare, retail, and banking, financial services, and insurance. So mostly building the data warehouses. I was like SQL. I started my career as a SQL developer back in 2000s, early 2000s, and then we every time we build the data warehouses, like it's a very challenging and interesting journey for the enterprise workspace. And from last couple of years, we try to help the data engineers how we can help the data engineers to do more in less time and build better data lakes and better data warehouses. So I'm putting my all energy and so Lucid is actually based out of in Toronto, and so we there is a product entirely. It's a Canadian company locally. It's working, and we have customers in Canada and US who are using Lucid to build their data warehouses and data lakes much faster and more advanced manner and much better way. And that's typically the background of Lucid and myself. And so let me quickly jump into what Lucid is all about. Like, I'll talk about the challenge, what like over the decades when we were working with the customers and building the data warehouse, the one of the biggest challenge the customers would face or the technical our data teams would face is that organizing the large amount of data and collecting this information from various data sources. It's not actually collecting and putting them into a staging environment, or maybe in a data landing zones is not a big effort, because there are many connectors out there available. You can easily build a pipeline and pull. The actual challenge comes in, how do you organize the data? How do you integrate the data to in a EDW or integrated fashion, which are very specific to your analytics needs or use cases. That's where you require a domain and data domain experts and domain knowledge, and it's very expensive for organizations. Um, the problem is like the technical teams doesn't understand the business and the domain and the data business teams doesn't understand the data engineering part of it, and it's often these handshakes are takes time, and that's end of the day the projects gets delayed, and to build an enterprise data warehouse for an organization typically takes like 6 months to 2 years time. And even like very small organizations, if you have like if you're in SMB sector as well, it takes a lot of time to build a proper data warehouse or data lakes, because the data modeling and mapping and creating that enterprise analytics models is actually a very tremendous complex activities and requires a domain knowledge. And that's where the Lucid is actually helping the data engineers to unlock the domain intelligence from the data and give it to the developers, and so that the developers can build the data models and data pipelines and ETL required much more easily, because they can focus on the technical aspect. The Lucid can provide them the domain and the business knowledge, with rather it's expensive, or it's which they do not have it as part of uh, the solution is simple. Like how Lucid works is that you take the data and put it in a bronze or a staging environment, and then you run a Lucid AI automation process. So Lucid goes and scans your entire data in the staging environment, and understands the data, and it understands how these tables are related to each other. This is identifies the primary keys and foreign keys and the different data distributions and statistics on the data. And finally, it will recommend you a enterprise data model. So typically, this building a data model based off your source systems takes a huge amount of time actually. So even if you consider, like if you have a tables like 50 to 100 tables in your source table, would require at least a month time to analyze each and every table and analyze the underlying data, how the data is connected, and then build a data model. Whether if you're building a dimensional data model or if you're building a data vault model, it takes an effort to build that models, but the Lucid is actually going to give you that model, and then it will make your data as well ready. So that what it means is that it will build your ETL code automatically from source to target based on the models. So again, this is an recommendation engine, and uh, it's not actually going to completely replace what the data engineers are doing, but it is going to give you the tools to require to understand the meaning of the data, so that you can build better data warehouse and better data models and better ETLs and better. So it's a completely a GenAI driven application, and it runs on multiple cloud environments. It runs on Azure, it runs on AWS and GCP, and we are also on the Azure marketplace currently, and we are also getting into Databricks and Snowflake marketplace as well. And end of the day, for a developers or for an organization, it gives you at least a 3x increase in productivity or the speed in which you can build the data warehouses, because all the domain knowledge from the data is profiled by the system, and then it is readily available for the data engineers. And again, like as we mentioned, we are dealing with an enterprise data, and it's secured, and it's all the data privacy and the compliance uh, things which are typically your a standard enterprise required is already taken. So the Lucid runs in the customer's own environment. The data doesn't leave out of the customer's environment. And like I said, right, like what are the major benefits? So Lucid is a Gen AI era data engineering platform, and so typically, if you look at your data engineering background, what you guys were doing, like and if you throw a bunch of data sources or tables and you start building the data models, you start building the mapping and modeling. This is everything is a manual process. Like you start writing. So the right now we have tools which can actually convert the text to code, but you still have to tell what code you have to write it. So text to code converters, code generators are available. Like you can go online GPT or you can go any other text to SQL or text to PySpark or Python. You can see, but the problem with those tools is that the tools doesn't understand your data. It doesn't understand your domain, how the intelligence what your business analyst or business users would give you. So the Lucid will actually that's where it makes a difference. And uh, uh, and ultimately you will be building better data lakes or data warehouses so that you can focus on engineering aspects rather than uh, working on the grunt work or especially by uh, the all the understanding and wrangling around the data, you don't have to worry about it. So the value propositions for the data engineers is that it's a domain aware automation for data engineers. So then your data, the Lucid is working on top of, if you have a Databricks environment or if you have a data warehouse or Snowflake or any other data platforms you're using. So Lucid actually works on top of it. It is not displacing or replacing those environments, data platforms, but you just connect the Lucid to the data platform, then it will understands the data underlying, and then it will provide the domain intelligence while you're working on the models. And so you can focus on engineering and let the Lucid handles the plumbing part, like the data movement and ETL part, and let GenAI handle the boring part, like the mapping and especially the profiling part. So you don't have to start from scratch. Like the model is like at least the 50% of the model is readily available for you. You start working on top of it. And so ultimately you are going to build the data lakes or data warehouses in record time. So there are a couple of use cases with Lucid actually uh, can be applied and can bring a value to the organizations. One is in a case of a migration scenario where you have a legacy ETL platform. Suppose you might be using SSIS packages, or it could be like a local SaaS programs or some on-prem legacy SQL-based data warehouses you have. Then you want to migrate that into a modern cloud like a Databricks or Snowflake. So Lucid can convert the ETL to cloud modern formats. That's a one migration scenario, but it also like if you have a completely greenfield environment where you're building the data warehouses and data lakes from scratch based on the different data sources, whether it's a cloud or on-prem or any other external systems, you're pulling the data. So that's where that work that is also one of the greatest use case where you can apply the Lucid and build your data warehouses much faster. So that's in a nutshell. That's the introduction about the Lucid. I can see that there's a question. There's a question. So uh, from the audience.
Actually, not yet. So I've been the one just trying to post a bit, like
Okay.
post your website, post your LinkedIn, mention a few things. But I've told them that, any questions they can funnel through the Q&A and I'm going to pass them to you. But I have a question, so at least since you have given the natural break to answer a question. So I would say that if you want to like look at the majority of your customers, people who you found that, they needed you badly and it was not too difficult for them to quickly begin to see value out of using Lucid Data Hub. What would you say are the major
Sorry,
pain?
Michael, I actually lost you.
Okay. What about now? Do you hear me? Let me
Yeah,
adjust
yeah.
my headset. Okay, so my question is the people who you found to be able to quickly, you know, make use of Lucid Data Hub and get quick results and be able to see value instantly. What would you say were the problems that they faced? What are the common issues that people at companies usually face that is a clear signal that, there's something missing that Lucid solves for them? And if you can also
Yeah,
touch on that.
yeah, so there's a couple of there are two types of users actually. Like I would say, two types of enterprise organizations who I can see readily. Right, one is like especially the SMB side, like a small and medium organizations who are not who doesn't have a huge army of data engineers in them, but they wants to build this data platforms in modern day. They want to migrate into this modern data platforms like Databricks, Snowflake, or AWS environment. But the challenge for them is that the team they have at least like sometimes they have only two people or three people. It requires a huge army of people to build those data platforms for them, the data warehouses and ETLs. For them, like Lucid is actually giving that initial push, and then you can achieve much faster given the size of the data tiers. That's right off the bat value proposition for the customers from a user point of view. And but we also have a large enterprise customers who has like tens and hundreds of data engineering team. The in those cases, what Lucid is actually helping them is that to fill the gap between the domain knowledge and the technical expertise. Because the bigger the teams are, the more the larger the organizations go, the gap between the cross departmental will actually increase. Because suppose you're bringing an SAP data, or if you're bringing a Salesforce Service Cloud data or Marketing Cloud data, but then this Salesforce Cloud, Marketing Cloud data or Service Cloud data, your data engineers won't understand what data it is, like how the data is connected. They all know that how to build a very good data ETL code or data models, but the underlying knowledge about the data is where it gets uh, messy for the large organizations, especially the data teams. So Lucid is helping them as well. So it's a mixture of small and medium and as well as large enterprise users, but the scenarios and the use cases are different there. And for the for the large enterprise customers, we also see that there are certain areas in the application like profiling and modeling the or KPIs part. They are much more interested rather than building the ETLs and data models because they have a very good skilled resources team who can do this job better, like in the modeling and building the ETL, but they are actually seeing the value in profiling and KPI side, like analytics side. Okay.
Great. Okay, thanks. And I'll keep watching. If anybody asks more any question, I will be sure to let you know. And I've told them maybe in case they didn't read all the things I've posted, that they can also ask questions that I anything related to data warehouse architecture, and any question that they have, that's it's an opportunity for them to hear from an expert. So if you didn't see my post, now I'm saying it loud, feel free to ask any questions. And,
Yeah.
we have someone. Great. Thanks, Venu. So back to you.
Yeah. So if you look at like in a medallion architecture, right? And this is just a one analogy. Like this can be applied to your EDW model or a data work model as well, or dimensional data model. So typically, like organizations bring the raw data in the landing area or raw zone, and they build the bronze zone easily. But the problem comes in actually building the silver zone and the gold zone, because this is where the complexity of the major complexity lies in. And people struggle and takes huge amount of time to build this, because to build this properly, you need to integrate the data. To integrate the data, you need to understand the sources and you need to understand how each source is connected to others. And then you build that enterprise models, canonical models, or the enterprise standard master models. Or it has to, and then obviously it has to be right optimized so that the data can be loaded much faster. And so, and the gold zone is again, it's depends upon how, denormalized analytics models you want to build based on the use cases or end user reporting needs. So this is where the things kept total messy and time consuming, and Lucid helps this area actually to build the silver and gold layered and automatically based on the bronze zone you have it. So I'll actually jump into a product demo, and I'll show the product. And so what you're seeing right now here is a Lucid playground environment. And so this is the our demo and the customers playground environments. And most of the customer, we do not have any customer specific data here, but just a playground environment to try or do some trial and POCs with some non real data. So so the users and they, every data engineers and data analysts get access to this platform, and they start working on this. So in the Lucid, now before you start, uh, we ask the customer to create a data pod. So data pod is a very Lucid specific concept. It is actually you can think of like in a workspace or a virtual workspace where you are actually connecting your data sources and connecting your target data lake environment and data warehouse environment. And then finally, you're also defining some context to your data sources, like what is the type of information you're bringing, where are you bringing from, and which department or which domain it contains. So I will talk about that in a bit. But eventually, like when you create a data pod, you can create a pod for different various industry types. Like if you are into beverages or Canadian come payments, or maybe construction or consumer loyalty or energy utilities or retail, healthcare. So, so now what you're doing here is that you're defining a where what my organization is about. So if we are working on an energy or maybe a financial or banking industry, then you are telling the Lucid that my data is coming from so and so industry type organization, the organization which actually under finance and banking sector. And so now when I connect my data source, so let's say uh, mm, uh, if I'm to the data part 101, and let's say some kind and so I can choose my data sources. So data sources, it could be an Azure or AWS or GCP or Databricks environment or SQL or Fabric. So like here we are not connecting to the actual data source systems. You like Salesforce or your on-prem SQL or application DBs. Rather, we are actually let the customer bring the data into the staging environment and we connect to the staging environment, because We are not solving the pipeline problem from connecting from actual source system and then dumping the data into a landing environment, or rather, we are actually solving the problem once the data is landed in the staging or a bronze area. How do we actually build that silver and gold layer, right? So this is where your bronze, and so you can choose whether you're pulling into an SW, or you can choose from a database catalog DB, and then once you create these connectors, right, and then you define where is your data lake. So if my data lake is, suppose if it's in Fabric One Lake, then you create a connected connection to your Fabric One Lake, and then you define your data warehouse. Like if it is in Snowflake, or again, if it is a Fabric data warehouse or SQL endpoint or database catalog. So you define that, and finally, then you define what data domain the data sources you might have configured, you choose from, like okay, this is whether it's a risk management or regulatory complex. So the Lucid is automatically giving you like based on the industry type you choose in, it will give you like options to choose what type of informations you're actually bringing into the system, and whether this is in a loans and credit management application or something else. So I'll show you one example where we have already created some sample pods. Let me bring that up onto the screen. So, so this is a retail consumer pod, so which is belongs to a retail and consumer goods industry, and which has the data in Azure Gen 2, like I have inventory data and consumer data, and my data warehouse in Fabric data warehouse, and it's connected to Fabric environment. And so if I go and choose, look at my inventory data pod, so it's my inventory data sources contains my inventory information, and also um, some business context, like what type of information this it has. Like yeah, it has a series of questions to the user. What's the primary purpose of this data source, and how frequently this data gets updated, and what type of data systems it has. So some of the discovery questions you typically your data analyst would can provide, or your business user can provide about the data source. And finally, the Lucid generates a context summary about your source system. And this context summary now useful when we actually interact with this data source and then try to create a data model. So let me show you. So we have a customer consumer data and inventory management data, which is coming from Azure Gen 2. And if I go inside, then the Lucid is actually now it is providing you all the tools to do the profiling, do the mapping, modeling, and then build the pipelines, and then finally uh, also do the analytics on the data. So let me show you some data profiling pieces, like for the consumer data or inventory data. So like there's some order samples and warehouses. So when I go and do a scan of the systems, so I know what is the context about this data source, and then I choose that type of information, whether it's a CSV or Parquet file, and then finally it it goes and scans the data and then creates a profile on the data. It automatically creates this business descriptions about your data, and identifies what are the primary keys and foreign keys in the data, and it scans, it identifies all the columns and the schema of your data source and creates a unique profile on the data. And So this is where it generates a data dictionary, and all this information is all it's connected to the GPT-4o right now, and so the LLMs are playing a role to understand the meaning of the data in your bronze or the staging environments. So now that Lucid knows what type of information you have actually brought in, and it scans the systems and then creates this entire profiling for you. And it's not just creates a like the profile on the data, and then it's also collects some of the basic some of the advanced like sample distribution of the data. And finally, it uses this information to build your data models, which are very specific to your organization and the industry type you have. So now in the next step, I'll go and I'll say that, okay, build me, I'll go to a domain specific model, and then I'll ask to create a generate the entities for the customer data, or and then I ask, okay, give me the entities in a dimensional data model, and then it will go and run the process for me, and the it will create this of like right now you can see this customer profile. Uh, so so this is a customer profile table, and these are the attributes. So let me go and do some, and finally it recommends you the what tables you need to use to build this customer profile. So the table is coming from customer profile, and then it creates that columns automatically. And then it also maps the columns to the source tables. And then also if there are any transformation rules you need to apply, it will go and recommend you those transformation rules. And finally, once you accept these things, or you can add an additional attribute or modify these things, and then you go and look at the code, and there is an ETL code automatically created for you here in the so so this ETL code is automatically created to move the data from source tables to the target customer profile table. And so now this is everything is generated by yeah, Lucid. And let me actually show you one other. So if you're working on, so now you actually building the models, and then finally, once you have the your domain specific models are created, now you go and Lucid will tell you, okay, you can, these are the use cases you can build. For example, you have a demand forecasting use case, and Lucid will actually recommend you the list of fact tables and dimension tables you need to build for this particular use case. So let me show you uh, overstock reduction. So if I ask Lucid to recommend me the tables required to go and so it is giving you this these are the to build if this is my use case requirement, and I'm asking Lucid to build a dimensional data model, and then it has given me okay sales velocity fact or inventory level fact, and I can choose this inventory level fact, and then I say okay, tell me what are the tables I need to build this inventory level fact. Now it is going to go and scan this entire profile data and then gives you the list of source tables. And or else you can just go ahead and choose the one from the mod domain specific model which you have created previously, and like whether you need a product dimension, whether if you need a historical, and then you save this one, then you come in and then type what you just type your prompt here, and generate the ETL code, then put this inventory level fact, and then you start analyzing the tables, and it will generate the code for you. And finally, it builds the entire enterprise data model for you to, for example, based on the models what you have built previously, uh, it creates that the data models automatically for you, and based by the using the AI. And then once you have this one, then you go in and then run this ATL code, which is generated by AI, and then it will load the data into those tables. So remember, like we have defined my target data warehouses fabric, and as a developer, you can start writing any customized code here, and then or you can ask to add some any data quality rules. You can define them and you can ask AI to generate. So now it understands your data, it understands your domain, it understands your context of the data. And finally, it's making the data engineer's life easy to build these industry and domain aware, context aware data lakes much faster. Okay. And so then once this models and this generator, so there's an element of migration we also talked about. Suppose you have like a source model, and then if you want to convert them into a target environment, you can actually convert from source type to any other target environment. This is like a straight apple to apple migration scenario if you have a but there are tools out there, many tools out there to do a simple conversion. Here, the domain intelligence doesn't play a role, but mostly in the data models and those things, it has a. And finally, it goes and for each of the use cases, it goes and recommends you what kind of KPIs you can build, and then it automatically suggests you what should be the formulas, and then as a user you can actually come in and then modify and make changes, and uh, and then you provide more additional information, and then you update the code. Then you can hit the generate code button, it will build the code, ETL code for you. And all the ETL code and the models which we generated is connected to your GitHub or Azure repos or any other source control. So you make the changes and hit the commit button. All this code is plugged into your repos, source code repositories. So, like as a data engineer, you don't have to like start from scratch again, right? So you bring in your source data, run the profiling, and generate the meaning of the data, and then based on your requirement, you let ask the Lucid to develop a data model, and then you work on the data model to make it perfect, and then you start building the ETLs and mappings for that. And then the Lucid will help you in every stage of the process. So that's the core value proposition, and that's where we as helping our customers today to build from zero to uh, modern data warehouses or modern data lakes much more faster manner rather than doing it everything manually, which takes months or years to do. Right. So that's a pretty much. I'll leave open floor open to for any questions if anyone has any questions from the team.
Yeah, thanks, especially for this walkthrough that you've done. So again, the floor is open to everyone. You want to ask a question, maybe based on what you've seen, or you've got something you want to know about, and uh, Venu is still with us to answer your questions. And the way to ask question is to put it in the Q&A. I know 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we always were able to come off mute and talk. Unfortunately, we have to use the moderated chat until we find a way to prevent people from abusing the chats. So that's why. But it's all for our good. So please put your questions in the chat, and I'll be sure to pass them to Venu. I'm looking right now. You know. Okay. So um, while we wait for more questions from people, because I'm also someone who what you are speaking about is very relevant to me. And so I want to ask, in terms of cost, how would you describe the way one gets to pay to use Lucid? Is it like the platform bills on a monthly fixed amount based on based on some usage band, or it is only, per usage, regardless of how much you have to use, you don't get separated into different bands. Just it would be nice to hear about the cost part of it. And maybe just to tack on that, the playground, is it available to everyone? Is it something like, oh, we can just share the link to playground and people can give it a trial, or it is only people who are already signed up to Lucid who can access the playground?
Yeah, yeah. I think the mostly the licensing part actually I'll answer the licensing part first and then come to the playground environment and access part. So the licensing is actually uh, mostly it's a customized based on the customer need, but the way we actually operate is that we take the Lucid and do the initial pilot for a few months, 3 months or 4 months, depends on the project size and the use cases. And then if a customer satisfies, then we go with a yearly or a couple of years of license with a huge discounts. Because there's no question of consumption here because we are not storing any information and we are not running any ETL on the Lucid. It's a design time tool. It's helping the customers to build faster. All right, but we are not storing and running anything within the Lucid. We are just the underlying infrastructure and underlying compute and the storage is all customer owned infrastructure. If they are using Azure, if they're using AWS or GCP, we it's a Lucid runs on every platform and within the customer's own environments. So, from infrastructure wise, it's a completely hands-free and it's a completely portable. And so that's why we charge them per month or a yearly license so that they have a full access to the platform with unlimited users within that organization. And the second part, coming to the playground environment, the playground environment right now it's only available to our internal team and the customers team. Uh, but we are actually launching a public facing playground environment. You can still like this playground environment is available. The link is active, but you will not be able to log in without an active account. So we are actually launching one B2B application which connects to the playground environment soon, so that anyone outside of an organization using their own uh, private or personal email ID, also they can get an access to the Lucid and give it a try. Uh, so obviously there would be some limitations in terms of adopting at the enterprise scale, but from a data engineering and hands-on practice point of view, they'll get an access to their platform through that B2C model.
Great, thanks. So I see, Naga, your hand was up, and you've given us another idea of making it interactive. So I've promoted you as a presenter, which means you can come off mute. You can try to ask directly your question. Naga, are you able to hear me? Except if your hand was up by mistake. Okay. All right. Maybe he's not really wanting to ask a question, but there's one more question that has come in. So let me push it to make it visible to everyone while I read it. And that also gives me an idea, if you want to ask your question, we can try this approach of promoting people. So, Sunda, I see your hands up. I'm going to promote you next. But before I do that, let me read out the question that's from, let me go to who asked it, from Robert. So, from Robert, he's asked, I'm going to read it. So, he says, how do you balance using helpful tools like these while maintaining the expertise to work harmoniously with generative models? Additionally, what are the core skills that users should absolutely have to excel using a platform like Lucid? Did you get the
Uh,
question?
can you please repeat the question for me?
Okay. And then one other good thing, in case if you have two screens,
Oh
a,
yeah,
the
yeah. I
question is
think
also
I
published.
can see how do you balance using helpful tools like this while maintaining expertise to work harmoniously with generative models? Additionally, what are the core skills that a user should absolutely have? So, the harmoniously with generative models. So typically, uh, the LLM models, the Lucid, in principle, you can actually switch the models. It works with a multi-model approach. But we, as a product company, we test with multiple models, and then we recommend to the customers and the user which is the best model for the particular module. Uh, some of the models, the code generation works, but based on our so far our experience, the GPT 4.0 or GPT 4.1 we have those are the best models today as of today. But if there are new models are coming in, it's very easy to modify, can reconnect to those models and work. And again, these are not public facing models, remember, these are actually the the models which are deployed again on a customer's own private environment, or custom, or for example, if you're on Azure AI Foundry, so if these models are deployed on the AI Foundry model within the customer's Azure tenant, and all the governance and the security around those models, the is the customers takes care of it. So we are not connecting to a directly a public facing GPT-4 API services. So we're not sending any data to the public facing GPT services. And so it's a if a customer has a Llama model deployed on one of the GPU machines internally to that organization, then the Lucid can connect to that Llama model service layer as well. So so we take the security and the data privacy and the data residency very seriously, and no data slips out of the customer's environment, no matter what models they use. And coming to the next part, like core skills, like what we expect the user that they have a previous data engineering knowledge, because these are very specific concepts and a specific um, thing. Like if you have a data engineering skill already, if you have done the data engineering work and data modeling, and if you worked on a data warehouse, then the Lucid is just a next generation tool to do the same work, but more advanced, more efficiently and faster manner. But if you are doesn't have the data engineering core skills, then it would be difficult to understand not just the Lucid, but in general, you cannot build a data warehouse or data lakes without an data engineering knowledge, right? So think of like this is an Excel mathematical model. It's helping you, but without the math knowledge, you cannot actually use that tool, right? So it's a simple like that.
Great. So I've promoted one other participant, Sunda. He's got his hand up. So Sunda, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Sundar can type in as well if he has a problem with the mic.
Okay. Let me check if anybody else has typed anything. I guess the people raising up their hands are kind of exercising their hands, like stretching, and they raise their hands. So, checking. So no new questions. Let me go again back to Q&A and check if Okay, great. So if you've answered all the questions so far, and if Sundar comes off mute or types his question, then we'll come to it. And so there are two questions we ask every special guest we have. Let me know if this is a good time to ask it, or there are still other things you want to talk about. Venue. Is
Oh
this
yeah, yeah, yeah. You can ask the question. Yeah.
okay? All right, great. So I'll start with one, and question one is we want to hear more about it's always sessions like these are ways that we get to see different people's journey, and to be sincere, a lot of the members of this community, I want to say half and half, but then I'll say maybe over 60% are people trying to fully cross over into the core of data engineering and the depth, the real thing we cover in most of the sessions. Some of them do it maybe part-time while they are trying to do a career transition, and then I would say like 40% are people who in their career-wise we've got about 1,320 members. I'll say about 40% of those are those who really are doing this day in, day out. So I don't want to, most of the sessions cater to those who already do this, which is good, because definitely that's what the group is about. But I also try to get value for those who are trying to cross, who will benefit a lot from hearing, people who are doing this at your level, their journey. So the question is, are you able to tell us more about your journey? How you got into, I know you've gone from multiple companies to another. You've worked for Microsoft, for Adastra, you've worked on the consulting side, you've worked internal, you've worked for even the provider of the technology, and now you found your own company. So yours is going to be an interesting story as far back as you want to go. If you want to tell us, even how you got interested in this space and how your journey has progressed, and maybe some people might take some motivation from it. That's the question one. Then I'll ask question two afterwards. So your journey is the question one.
Yeah, sure. Actually, yeah. So, I was a developer, right? Like anyone else in the group, probably. So, the my so data is a big part for my journey, actually. So, I've been dwelling into the data from beginning of my career, like whether it's started as a SQL developer, like I mentioned, and we used to uh, the back end, the data part, complexities in the data, and understanding the data profile, like go deeper into the data part. That's the area of my passion, ideally, and it's this idea of building something uh, which can help build the data warehouses, because the concept of data warehouses are there from last 30, 40 years actually, to be frank. But the problem, like the practice is so well advanced, and it's well complex as well. The subject of data warehouse is very complex that there are no tools attempted to make it simple for the data engineers, because there are a lot of complexities are involved. So if you wants to build anything, like I myself, when I started, especially as a truly as a data engineers working like 15 years ago, when we started building my own first data warehouse for an healthcare organization, like I spent like almost 1 week to understand how a particular source system generates the data and how the tables are connected to each other. And the knowledge what we apply to understand is the source data, it's the same knowledge we apply to understand any other source data as well. So that time, like this is, I think, back in 2011, I guess, when when we started our first data warehouse built, then I thought, okay, To build a data warehouse for an hospital, for an healthcare provider, it took us almost 6 months to come up with a model, perfect model. And I was saying, okay, why can't we build a tool which can actually just understands your data and then gives you a model for you, and then pass it on this model to your ETL developers, and they build the mapping, they build the ETL code for that. But the challenge is that there are so many different scenarios and so many different nitty-gritties, so many details you need to do. A tool cannot do it. Then we try to do with build some AI models. Uh, I was searching there is there any AI models out there which can understands your meaning of the data and understands the different data points within a database. But nothing there actually. So every time you go start a project, you spend months to understand the data and understand the organization, how they operate. Then you come up with a model, right? So like 3 years ago, uh, then I decided that okay, probably I built like almost 60, 70 data lakes and data warehouses combinedly for over 30, 40 organizations uh, in the last 15 years. But every time it's always a tedious process and it takes time. And then 3 years ago, I wanted to build my own company and product to help this problem in industry because like if you look at the major hyperscaler data platforms like Microsoft or Snowflake or AWS, they give a very wonderful tools to store and compute your data to run the ETLs faster. You can run much with an hyper scale speed. But the problem is that the ETL comes the later part. How do you model the data? How do you create those models which are very specific to your analytics need? Otherwise, if you don't model it properly, then your ETLs won't work efficiently, and then you will not be able to deliver your data to your end users efficiently, right? So no one is solving that middle problem. Everyone is trying to store the data efficiently. Everyone is trying to run the data efficiently, but okay, but who is going to solve the problem of modeling and mapping? And that's where the Lucid came, and because we're trying to help those things. And then 3 years ago, we tried with some AI. We started our own, creating our own AI models, test it. But again, like in 2020 or to the Gen AI came in, and then generative AI made a major difference shift actually. So that's when I decided, okay, let's we ran some initial models using GPT 3.5, and then we said, okay, yeah, though the knowledge of domain intelligence, it's there in the LLM. So why don't we distill that information and apply to the data and then use that data to build the models. So that is I was full time into this space and then started building this Lucid from ground up. So in 2023, in March, I left. I think in 2022, later in the year, I left Microsoft, and then I started this company in March 2023. And then from there, we started working on building this application. The core thing is not about the application, it's more about the knowledge, how you connect the dots, like how you take the source data and how you mix it with the domain knowledge, and then you generate the output. I think that's the key part. The tool, the application is just a front end layer which will give you the access to this platform, but the brain is that the the models like where you're developing, and the domain intelligence is the brain. And so we started in March 2023, and then by in August we ready with our initial MVP, and I was the only one when I started, and then I started hiring a couple of guys and to build me the application, the front end layer. And then in August 2023, I landed my first enterprise contract to run this for a retail organization in US, and then we did a POC initial pilot that was successful with a small sales data, and then we got in a one. So the customer had a 3 years data lake journey, and we compressed the 3 years into a 1 year using Lucid, and in
Oh,
2024 by end of 2024, we have actually onboarded almost six different data sources into their data lake environment. They had a plan to onboard in like next 3 years, but with Lucid, we are able to onboard in like in one third of the time. And because the initial profiling and then understanding data dictionary generation mapping piece is all automated, right? So the only thing you start working on that making sure that what the AI is giving you is right or wrong, and then you just confirm it, or if it is not right, and then you just fix it and then move forward, right? So and now we have currently total six enterprise customers who are using Lucid to build their data lakes. And we did not like right now still we are in a bootstrap mode itself. Like we are because we are focusing on technology and a product rather than on a growth and scale. And we are not scaling as like I would say we are not in the scale mode because we are not actually looking for a huge list of customers. Rather, we are taking two, three customers at a time, preferably two customers at a time, and making the product ready, making the technology ready. And probably next year, our plan is to go to into a scale mode where we launch our B2C platform, and then we
oh
will
wow.
scale it to the. But under so far, like our focus is that okay, let's not go more than two customers or three customers max at a time.
Oh wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this is a lot of work that you're putting
Yeah.
into it, and the fact that you have to, you're doing this full time. You left your very great job and now have a team and you're bootstrapping. I'm gonna say like, oh, sometimes you don't get worried that, oh, should you try to leave the product building section phase and maybe even try to raise some big amount of money and stop spending so much of your own money. Has it ever like have you ever felt tempted of, oh, let me just go raise money and not have to spend your own money up front?
Yeah, no, yeah, we haven't gone in raised the money yet, any funding yet. The reason is that, uh, like I said, right, we don't want to scale fast and uh, because I know the challenge of the complexity of this problem. Rather, we spend enough time in to build the technology and then scale it. Obviously, there is a point we have to scale it as an organization, but the rather we fail four customers rather than 40 customers, right? We fail at four customers and build a product and then scale it to 40. Uh, but but if I go and raise a funding, then I can build a huge army of salespeople. They will
Yeah.
give me a 40 customers in next 3 months. But again, the product is not ready, then that's the problem, right? But again, I still need a customers to build a product as well because I cannot just imagine some data and then build something, right? It will just take you to a very short certain. But in reality, like we had a we really had a scenarios where okay, we assume something, we build something, and then we deploy it on a customer environment. We see completely different scenario there, and it
Yeah.
doesn't work there. So we need a customers for sure, but we just need to know enough customers so that we can actually focus on product and technology. So that is where currently we are actually focusing uh, on. And obviously, sometimes some people say that okay, you rather like you have to be ahead of the game because the Gen AI part is growing so fast. But again, that is also one fear we have it in our backend, like the what if there's someone builds this type of tools. But again, and that would be great actually, because as a vision, I wanted to solve this problem because uh, And if you have a tools which can solve this data engineering problem or modeling, that's great, right? And but the problem is not, it's not simple. It's a very huge. And right now we are like, we spent 2 years, like we are at the 50% to 60% accuracy, and we are counting like next 1 year we go to 70, 80% accuracy. And to do this, it's not, you don't need a funding, or you don't need a team. You need a very structured and passionable execution plan, and also you need customers. And you want a customer who want to be part of your journey, who can provide the feedback, who can work with you to make the product improve. So that the money cannot buy that actually, right? So yeah, so that's why we are still bootstrapping. Again, the bootstrapping was only there for initial 8 to 10 months, and then after that, we actually landed into the enterprise contracts, right? So a couple of in 2023 October, we signed a 1 year deal with our first retail customer. So that has helped us to fund our product team, and and the way we are doing also is that we have. I think this is a good idea if anyone was also wanted to start a company, right? So I have well, I have mixed the services and the product and the licensing together. Because when I sell Lucid to a customer, what I'm telling the customer is that, okay, do not just take the Lucid. Okay, if you have a data engineering project, okay, if you have planned it for 6 months with four resources or five resources, if it is costing you 500K for a 6 months, so okay, so you buy the Lucid, which will give you for a 6 months, you pay $50,000, but you give the project to us, then we will deliver in 2 months with 200K, right? So now the customer is getting 300K savings, and we are doing the project for 200K using the Lucid. So it's a win-win for us. So, and this is keeping us, and then we are taking the services revenue and then investing back into the product development, right? So that is a model we are actually going through. So,
Wow.
so far we do not, so glad that we are not, uh, uh, so working with VC system is actually challenging, but again, we have to go that route sometime when we want to scale it. But this model, what I explained, will work when you are building the MVPs, when you are building the initial
Yeah.
product. Uh, but if you want to scale it, then you need funding, and we need to go there for sure.
Oh, wow, great.
Mm.
I think I have some people that I know might be a good customer to you. I'll just speak with them first, and if they are, okay with me connecting them with you and any of your team at Lucid, I think I'm gonna do that because I see that, especially the model you use, they are also in a phase of where they are in retail. That's why it came to my mind. They're in retail. They are across Canada, and they said they've been using years. You are even saying the company planned 5 years. I think they've probably spent more than 7 years trying to
Mm.
have an enterprise structure across all of their data, across all of their retail outlets across Canada, and everybody has just accepted that this thing is a never ending thing, and they're just like they've lost they've lost motivation, but they still have to do it, and they keep
No, I
spending
think,
on it.
yeah. Yeah, so there are two things, right? When you actually, so data engineering or data lake is never ending game actually. It's actually, but there are two reasons for it. One is uh, your source systems keep changing and evolving, right? Your source systems are migrating, your ERP systems are migrating to new platforms, and then you are acquiring new organizations, you are getting new type of information. So all this has to come into your central repository of the data. So that is one of the reason why the engineering are keep uh, will stay and relevant, and it's important. And then there is another reason. And that is the first reason what I explained is actually a good reason to stay never ending because you are actually keeping up to the speed of your business and organization. But the second problem is that you end up in a never ending situation because you have designed it wrong. You have done it not
Uh,
properly, right? So, because you do not understand your business, because you do not understand your data properly, or you did not think about what's coming in, and you build something which is not scalable. So that is the area where we are actually solving the problem. But again, I cannot say that, okay, you do the data, you build a data warehouse with Lucid after 3 months, okay, that is the end of it. No, that's not never going to be end of it. You still continue to build it, but you are building more faster. You are reacting to your
mhm.
organization change much faster.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. I know we've
Yeah.
used more of your time than we booked, but it's been very enlightening. I'm so glad that we asked you these questions because I've learned, and I'm sure those who had to go, they will. I'll tell them to make sure that you watch the recording to hear more of these your insights and sage words at the end. So thank you very much, and to those who have stayed to the end, thank you too for staying. And I want to wish you all a very good week ahead, and see you all next month. And again, to Venu, thank you for honoring us with your presence and freely sharing your wealth of knowledge. And I tell you, I'm going to be one of your evangelists. Like anywhere I see where they can use your tool, I'll try to tell them that, have they thought about Lucid, and I'll try to, from some of the things you've explained, I'll try to do that initial sales pitch to them. And because I believe in it, I believe in the dream of what you're, as a someone who work with data, I see the challenges, and I know that, what you're doing is going to put smiles, and it's even helping them do things more efficiently. They will spend less, they get more output, and they will put in place a structure that is going to be robust and keep aligning with their business. So it's all smiles. Anybody I introduce that they use your product, they will be happy that, oh, they got a better solution than what they were using. So thank you very much, and have a
Yeah.
wonderful week ahead. Thanks.
Yeah, and thank you, Michael, for your support and giving me opportunity to talk here. And I'm looking forward to connect with everyone on the LinkedIn and any other channel. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to be connected with this professional group. Okay.
Yes, thanks. I'm gonna even share again. I've shared it to everybody. Check the chats. I've shared the how you can connect with Venue, and also check out Lucid. Thank you very much, and I'll
Yeah.
let you all
Thank
have
you.
your evening back. Thanks.
Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Bye.